Welcome everyone to Wrasslin Raw!
Wrasslin Raw, the podcast that takes you back to when the World Wrestling Federation developed a little bit of an attitude. Thank you for joining us. You're here with Ryan Arico.
Don't forget to stay tuned after the show because La Femme Lakita is going to come up right after Wrasslin Raw.
Ain't no Robin Hood. Joe Giammatteo.
You know, last week's podcast episode was big, but this week's will be colossal.
I'm the one and only Jason Bartlett, and we're going to examine WWE history one episode of Raw at a time. In this episode of Wrasslin Raw, we're going to be talking about the Raw that aired on January 20th, 1997. This Raw was recorded at the, I gotta see if I can pronounce this correctly, Montague? It's some kind of weird French name in Beaumont, Texas.
Isn't that a name from a Shakespeare, Montague?
No, Montaigne, maybe? I think it might be Montaigne is the correct way to pronounce it. The Montaigne Center of Beaumont, Texas. And features Jerry the King Lawler, Vince McMahon, and Jim Ross on commentary. Are you guys ready?
I'm ready.
Ready.
All right, then let's get into it. Did either of you know that the front page of the San Antonio local newspapers had a very small byline in the lower left-hand corner about the Royal Rumble that was inflated to sound like it took up the entire top of the fold section? Shawn Michaels is the new champion of the WWF, and the Royal Rumble itself was dominated by Steve Austin. But there were shenanigans. Who will face the champion at WrestleMania after the questionable finish to the Royal Rumble? Gorilla Monsoon will be here to tell us tonight on Monday Night Raw. But before we can get past our introductions here, commentary, Jerry, Jim, and Vince standing there getting us ready for the night, Bret Hart arrives to the ring and grabs a microphone. Bret has some grievances to air about what's been happening to him since his return, namely that he's sick of getting screwed. Not only is he sick of getting screwed, but Bret wants his shot at the title after getting screwed by Shawn Michaels, screwed by Stone Cold Steve Austin, screwed by the WWF, and screwed by Vince McMahon personally. Sick of getting screwed. Vince does not respond to any of this at all. Vince completely no-sells it. So Bret says, well, I guess I quit then, and drops the microphone and exits through the crowd while the fans shout, "We want Bret." This draws Stone Cold Steve Austin to the ring, who grabs a microphone and starts laying into Bret Hart. Stone Cold calls out Bret for doing nothing but crying since Bret's return, and Stone Cold also informs us that Gorilla Monsoon has called an audible tonight. Austin was supposed to face Psycho Sid, but Sid's got a concussion, so Austin will face the Undertaker tonight. That concussion, I hear the word concussion, and I hear also the sound of a softball dinging some aluminum bats or something in the background, Austin says, and I quote, "Bring his dead ass out here," and I popped. And we leave this segment with Austin in the ring, Vince McMahon walking up the entryway, and Jim Ross inflating the attendance numbers from the Royal Rumble. Monday Night Raw kicked off with a bang here. Joe, please, what did you think of what Bret Hart and Stone Cold Steve Austin had to say at the top of the show here?
Well, it's a great way to start the show, right? It's much better than hearing fake Razor or fake Diesel music or Sable's music.
Oh my God, yes.
The best part of it was him yelling at Vince. Just, looking back, Bret Hart probably wishes that he actually did quit on this this show. He comes off as a little bit whiny, but fuck Vince McMahon. He's annoying, right? So I think the fans are probably thinking, he's kind of being a whiny little bitch, but at the same time, yeah, fuck Vince. So pretty good stuff there. Austin comes out and is just, he's on fire on the mic. right now. Just everything he said was fantastic. He's cutting a promo on Bret Hart, on Vince McMahon, on Gorilla Monsoon, on The Undertaker, on Psycho Sid. It's all good stuff. And another great thing happened, guys. Vince McMahon walked to the back, which is fantastic because now we have JR and the King on commentary.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I loved it. Started off with pissed off Bret Hart. And, I've said it many times. That's my favorite Bret Hart. And he is addressing Vince McMahon as the owner. It has happened a couple times at this point from some other people, but not very often that people directly point him out as the decision maker here at the company. I also loved Bret Hart's Calgary Hitman hockey shirt. I thought that was fantastic. I also thought it was a little odd. Bret goes on a rant about all the different people screwing him, including Vince McMahon, kind of foreshadowing all this screw job going on here. But once he does quit and Stone Cold comes down, Bret Hart did a great job, but Stone Cold he's just another level on the mic, and he just rips into everyone, including The Undertaker and Sid. He says Sid has a big yellow stripe painted up his back for sitting home with a concussion. So Austin did a fantastic job. This was classic Stone Cold in the ring here. I mean, it was just 100% rattlesnake. So good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And something else that I noticed, Joe, you had pointed it out for the Royal Rumble. It seems like that black hat on JR is going to stick around at least through this episode.
Yeah, and Vince referred to him as good old JR on the intro.
Mm-hmm.
Black hat, good old JR, and just Jim and Jerry on commentary. It's very nice to see. Something that I was looking forward to. Let's talk about this. Our first match of the night. Owen Hart and the British Bulldog defeat Furnas and LaFon by pinfall in 10 minutes and 22 seconds. Furnas and LaFon got the jobber treatment here at the start. 0 entrance, 0 acknowledgement coming down to the ring. They were already there whenever we came back from the commercial break that separated the first segment from this. And the work started with Owen Hart and Phil LaFon. Technical skill was pretty on display here at first. When Furnas came in, I was shocked at how tan he was compared to the last time we saw him. It felt like he was dipped in bronzer or something right before this match. And things stayed entertaining for the most part between Furnas and the Bulldog, and then also between LaFon and the Bulldog. That is, until LaFon decided to just stop selling there in the ring with the Bulldog. Things lost their momentum right around there. Owen was able to hit a great-looking, almost botched drop kick on Furnas. The ref wasn't paying attention, as Owen could have got 2-3 counts in before the ref came over to lay down a 2 count. We broke to commercial to put over the Royal Rumble encore for what felt already like the 90th time tonight, but certainly won't be the last. This time, the encore footage is actual rolling footage as opposed to just still shots. And I think this was also the first mention of La Femme Nikita on After Raw. When finally we came back into the match, it was Owen and Furnas, and it felt like things had slowed down quite a bit. Things just kind of went until Owen hit an amazing sounding enziguri to the back of Furnas's head. That was fucking tight. But then it slowed down again, and that's when I realized that these guys had probably just showed up to hit the pay window. They were working slow and easy and safe to get through their time. When LaFon came in for the hot tag there, it was a little too late. He blitzed through moves. He had a great-looking snap suplex, among others, but it was all just a setup for the finish. Owen hits LaFon with his slammy, allowing the legal Bulldog to put LaFon into the power slam for the pin and the 3 count. I'll say that while I am somewhat disappointed with the match we got after looking forward to it for so many weeks now, I also don't blame these guys for working safe and slow. We all know that the tag team division is what it is. Phil LaFon could stand to sell a little better, though, in my humble opinion. Joe, what did you think of this match?
I thought the match was pretty decent. I didn't think it was as good as I had hoped it would be.
Yeah.
I said before, I think it's ridiculous to have Clarence Mason out there with British Bulldog and Owen Hart when he's also with the Nation of Domination. I'm not sure why they're doing that. Just put him with the Nation. and not these guys. I don't get it. But La Femme Nikita, I looked up when that show premiered, and it premiered on January 13th of 97, so just a week ago. So we're going to hear about that quite a bit here over the next few years. As far as the match, again, another thing I said before, and I still stand by it. I feel like Furnas and LaFon are two guys that are just a little bit past their prime.
Yeah.
JR does give us a nice background on these guys. He tells us, they spent several years at All Japan, because we never really knew that. We never really knew where they came from. Nobody ever really explained it.
He's an Okie boy.
Yeah, so he explains that to us, and thinking about that, if these guys spent like 10 years in All Japan, I mean, think about all the injuries and stuff they probably went through.
Yeah.
Like, it's probably true. They're probably just past their prime, which is unfortunate, but they could still have a serviceable match. I thought Owen Hart was phenomenal in this match. I thought just from the work in the ring to the very smooth interference with the Slammy Award trophy, just everything was so smooth with Owen in this match. And I think that with his interference that was so good, I feel like that kind of helped elevate Furnas and LaFon a little bit and got this crowd pretty hyped up.
Yeah, I thought that this was a pretty strong match, especially an actual tag team match, which is something we have not had much of lately. Sadly, they do remind us out of the gate that it is a non-title for some reason. We couldn't have a title match as well. But as far as the tag team match go, I was expecting a pretty decent match, and I think they delivered on a pretty decent match. Joe, like you said, especially Owen, there were a few spots during this match where Owen really took the show, I thought. Not to take anything away from Bulldog or Doug and what's the other guy's name? Doug and Phil. But they are a little bit past their prime, unlike Owen. That flying kick that Owen was able to pull in and actually land, I thought looked good, and Phillips sold it really well. It was about halfway through this match when it became clear about the classic duo of JR and King on commentary without Vince. They were losing focus, talking about a couple other things like happens, but it didn't feel out of place, and they very quickly brought it back to the match, and it feels like commentary flows so much better without Vince there. The end was pretty strong too. Owen comes in, he gets knocked out, grabs his Slammy Award. He's able to use it as a weapon and give Bulldog the advantage to land the power slam and get the victory. So maybe one of our best tag team matches that we've seen in a while. And that's only because we don't see them that often. But if this was a title match, it probably could have been a little bit better, but maybe with that ending, they're trying to set up a little bit of a longer program between these guys, and maybe we're going to see them defend their titles at a pay-per-view. So looking forward to that if it happens.
I find it really funny that you mention Vince McMahon not being there, because you're right. First of all, I mean, he not only was he not there, it was almost a relieving kind of silence.
It's amazing, yeah.
That space between the two of them was just so noticeable. But the reason I find that funny is because immediately after this segment, we go into a brief mid-match segment here where JR wants us to feel the entrance of Shawn Michaels from the Royal Rumble last night. And doesn't that just sound like Vince screaming in JR's ear? We need to feel the 39 minutes of Shawn Michaels coming down to the ring in that mirrored spangly thing. It just felt just as long and boring as it did for me personally before. And again, like I said, that's it for this mid-match segment. It's literally just replaying a small portion of Shawn Michaels' entrance. But I do want to ask, and I'd like to hear this from both of you. Ryan first, did you feel it?
Oh, I felt all of it.
Oh. That's my reply.
Good. That's what I wanted to hear. We're going to need that as we move into our next match. Farooq defeats Bart Gunn by pinfall in 5 minutes and 19 seconds. God, PG-13 are just so terrible. so terrible. I did love that Farooq had the full nation with him. Joe, I completely agree with Clarence Mason on Owen and the Bulldog. This is where Clarence Mason belongs. I mean, I wish I could get some more time with him talking here, but he looked good here. He looked good angry.
Yeah, it's not only like he looks good there, but like he's in a faction. So like, why would he be with other teams and other
just
wrestlers?
Doesn't make sense.
No.
Yeah, really the whole picture here is looking good. Once we trim some fat from it, though, it'll look even better sometime here in the future. We got a replay of Ahmed Johnson smearing that poor nation guy through the French announce table at the Royal Rumble. That was good to see again. And then the opponent, Bart Gunn,
is our jobber of the week.
It was close. It was close.
To virtually no fanfare. And my God, the music's really starting to stand out as dated now. This was really unfortunate at the start because Bart Gunn's physical look comes kind of close to squaring up against Farooq. Bart Gunn has a hell of a physical look to him, and that's about it. I mean, his work's good too, but zero charisma, as we've said many times before.
Black hole of charisma.
Yeah. But just, a pure physical one-on-one comparison, Bart Gunn looks pretty good against Farooq. Something that did not look good was anything that PG-13 tried to do. They can't even interfere in a match convincingly. And they did it a few times here. There must have been a plant out in the audience somewhere to get a really weak jailbird chant started. It died out as soon as commentary noted it. More hints of Vince McMahon there, I think.
That was who was chanting it.
Yeah, that's where he went. He went up the entryway to go hide in the crowd so he could start the jailbird chant.
Jailbird.
Whenever it was time for Bart to rally, he and Farooq both looked really good, I thought. That is, until Bart went outside to attack PG-13. PG-13 just shitted it up real good out there, which of course brought Crush in. He shitted it up even more. That allowed Farooq to hit the Dominator on Bart, which looked fucking devastating. My God. Gives you the tingles. Ooh. And that was it. PG-13 forced themselves up into the hard camera view up right next to Farooq so they could throw their fists up and just fuck things up in general instead of letting Farooq have his moment. And things started moving somewhat quickly after that, so I'll pause it here. This was the match that, not to play my hand here, but was a pretty good highlight of the night for me, I think. This brought it all together as far as action in the ring. This was visually interesting with Bart Gunn and Farooq there. And if it wasn't for PG-13, I would have thought quite a lot more about it, but because like I said, I mean, everything they're doing here is terrible. They haven't justified themselves at all being here. Ryan, what did you think of it?
Yeah, it definitely felt like a jobber match for poor Bart Gunn here, but it was a strong match for Farooq. And again, Farooq just giving off that dominant presence that he has. We talked about that a little bit during our Royal Rumble match. And I thought it was clear here again, the way he jerked that woman in front of him to take off his robe. We then see some footage of Ahmed putting another nation jobber in the hospital. They told us that guy that got put through the Canadian, or the French-Canadian announcer table did indeed need medical attention. Once they actually got in the ring, it was nothing special, but very solid work between both guys. And they're both, like you pointed out, Bartlett, Bart matches up pretty well against Farooq size-wise, and it was just kind of two bigger guys hammering on each other. Nothing real special, but solid work. JR briefly brings up and reminds us that Bart Gunn broke Billy Gunn's neck. I completely forgot all about that storyline.
So did I. I forgot about it since I watched it.
And then I thought maybe Billy slipped Farooq a little bit of money on Farouk's finisher here because he almost killed Bart.
Yeah.
At the very end, pulled it in and pulled it off, but he almost murdered Bart right there. But outside of the ugly finish, I thought another pretty strong match here, entertaining and again furthering Farooq and his how he looks and his in-ring presence.
I think we all need to really put Ron Simmons over for this, because this is he's so good in this gimmick, and this entire version of Nation of Domination, nobody remembers this as the Nation of Domination. So, a lot of credit to Ron Simmons for, making this work, that they were able to kind of, like you said, Bartlett, trim the fat later. And by trimming the fat, basically getting rid of all of these people, except for D'Lo Brown, who has not even been named yet. He's basically just a stooge at this point. So, yeah, a lot of credit there. And Ryan, like you said, there's this woman. We don't even know her name either, but Farouk's kind of roughing her up when we see her. So yeah, just really really impressive that this is a faction that is remembered by a lot of wrestling fans, but not this version of it. So pretty wild to see this. And this match here and the Royal Rumble match that Farooq had with Ahmed Johnson, I think shows that Farooq has a pretty good amount of heat with the crowds, the live crowds. And I mean, he's barely scratched the surface with this gimmick. So that is pretty exciting to see. And obviously looking forward to PG-13 leaving at some point, because they are just, they're just these two squirrely guys that just look like jobbers. Like it's not working at all. So looking forward to them leaving.
Every time I see them, all I could think of is Weird Al's White and Nerdy.
Just the way that they move around too. It's just, I don't know. They're just, they're terrible. They look like two guys that they literally picked out of the crowd and just had come out there. Yeah. The move where Farooq almost killed Bart Gunn, they called it the Dominator. Have we seen that before?
Yeah, I believe so.
Only once or twice, though.
Okay. I wonder if we'll keep seeing it after this. But it also looked like Bart kind of lead-assed a little bit on that too.
He could have,
which didn't help. But man, that was a devastating maneuver.
Yes, it was. Oof. Just thinking about it, and Ryan, you put it perfectly. For anybody that's maybe trying to picture what we're talking about, Ron Simmons, Farooq has Bart Gunn up, and he's going down. It's almost like a reverse power slam. You could maybe kind of call it that. But at the very, very last set, like at first, Bart's going down like head first into the mat, straight in, until at the last second, either Bart tucks his head or Farooq pulls his head in or something to get him flat to his back. But my God, there was a brief second there where it was like, holy shit.
You could see Farooq in that kind of like quick panic mode almost.
Yeah.
Like the move kind of sped up as he tried to fix it.
Yeah. Well, as I said before, things started moving quickly here. A lot of segments starting to blur together, or these final segments throughout the rest of the show, blurring together, I should say. Immediately following that last match, as the Nation passed them on the way up the entryway, Vince McMahon had finally returned to ringside, and he brought Gorilla Monsoon with him.
Boo.
Yeah, Gorilla getting booed. How about that? I was really surprised. I thought Gorilla was here to give the fans what they want. Apparently the fans were not fans of what Gorilla had been giving us. And who can blame them?
I'm thinking they were maybe booing Vince McMahon.
Let me have my fantasy. This is the man that's bringing us Vader. God damn it. Gorilla is upset, understandably so, about the whole Bret Hart thing that happened earlier tonight. While he can't do anything about it, he admits that the finish to the Rumble was also unfortunate. And as we all know, referee decisions are final in the WWF. Iron Man match? No? Wasn't that a final decision as being a draw?
That's a special occasion. That had to do with Shawn Michaels.
Okay, no, you're right.
The most resilient.
God, I feel it. What we find out here, though, is that Gorilla has put together a 4-man, and please correct me if I got this wrong, because the way he described it was kind of hard to follow at first. A 4-man, no DQ elimination match to decide who will face the champion at WrestleMania. That's where this completely fucking lost me. I was kind of just interested up until that point. The first competitor in this 4-man no DQ elimination match is going to be The Undertaker. The second is fucking Vader.
Yay.
And the third, if he accepts, is Bret Hart. These three were all illegally eliminated by Austin at the end of the Rumble, and then Austin will be the fourth man. I admit that's actually kind of clever booking. I'll give it to them. It's a way to get a lot of star power into the ring all together, or 3 people in Vader at least. Gorilla and McMahon don't even get out of the ring before Austin is there to point out that Bret Hart had quit. Austin then goes and lays into Gorilla Monsoon over his decision, cutting another promo, going so far as to get in a jawing match with Vince McMahon at the outside, while Bret returns through the crowd to accept the challenge. Bret also says, let's not bother waiting, let's just do it now, which I fucking popped for. Bret and Austin go at it in the entryway. This looked great. It took 6 officials to pull them apart. And that didn't last long, though. They went right back at it, and the fight lasts through the commercial break. Stone Cold elects to just stay in the ring as the bell tolls for the next match, so I'll pause here to ask, Joe, what did you think about what President Monsoon gave us and the aftermath?
Yeah, I mean, Gorilla comes out to explain this dumbass 4-man no DQ match. We're still on the road to WrestleMania. Keep in mind, at this point, I think the original plan was to have Bret Hart face Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania. So I'm assuming they set this up to have Bret win, but something is going to happen to change that. We'll see what happens. And this is really shitty timing to use this angle less than a year after that stupid Iron Man match bullshit finish. So yeah, I can't get into it for that reason. And the fact that Vader is in there.
Yeah.
It's a shame that Vince basically down the road here is going to screw us wrestling fans out of more Bret Hart versus Stone Cold Steve Austin stuff, because the chemistry between those two is fucking incredible. Bret Hart and Steve Austin. It's amazing. And it's just a shame that we only got like a year out of it. The other thing I noticed here is we are already tapping into that Stone Cold heel gimmick that went over really big. He's already messing with authority figures, and the crowd is really loving it. It's also crazy to me how the Montreal Screwjob was kind of accidentally booked throughout the course of about 15 months, if you think about it.
Yeah.
Bret talking about always getting screwed, and he's basically kind of getting screwed here. I just wish the whole thing would have been Bret and Austin, and I'm not sure why The Undertaker is inserted in there, and I sure as hell don't know why Vader is inserted in there. I mean, I know why they're going to be in this 4-man match, but I wish the booking would not have had that happen.
Yeah, Gorilla comes down and tries to explain this convoluted 4-way no DQ match. And if you leave out Vader, it probably would have been a decent match. But but Vader, as we've established on many, many episodes at this point, he's going to shit that match up and make it look bad. Stone Cold comes down on the mic and rips into Gorilla. And it was funny because, earlier in the night, Stone Cold is still playing the heel, and the crowd, they still don't know what to make of him. It's like they want to boo him because they know he's the heel. But when he starts just ripping into people and just doing absolute gold on the mic, they have no choice but to start cheering for him, because if you were there live and you see a guy just doing that good, what choice do you have? You know what I mean? And that is ultimately what is going to end up forcing them to put Stone Cold over. But he did a great job. Bret Hart coming down and accepting it, I thought that was great. And the fact that him and Austin get into it, the crowd loved that as well. The whole thing with involving Vader in this, it does kind of ruin it. I understand why they're trying to get Undertaker in here. He's another huge fan favorite, and maybe they feel like they owe it to Undertaker to give him a run at the belt with, as big as he's been and as much tickets as he's sold over the last few years. So I could kind of understand him, but Vader just makes no sense whatsoever. Right before we go to break, I did love Bret Hart slammed Stone Cold's head off the stairs, and JR screams, Stone Cold's down! Stone Cold's hurt!
Yeah, I agree with you guys on Vader in this especially. I was thinking to myself, what if... Because, Joe, you may want to correct me at this point or sometime in the future, but is it softball season already for Sid?
It's a little bit early.
Does he come back from this?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Sid is going to be in the championship match at WrestleMania with The Undertaker.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. My timeline's all screwed up then, because I was just like, wait a second, does this, all of a sudden whenever Sid disappears and you have to call an audible, it's usually because Sid decided to go home.
Yeah, Sid's around for like another almost a year or so, right?
Yeah.
All right, well, that still stands then. I really wish that we could just have Sid in this instead of Vader, even though I'm not saying
there's
Sid.
so many other choices. I mean, Mankind would be an obvious choice.
Mm-hmm.
Hell, like Rocky Maivia was in that Rumble pretty late. Maybe put him in there. I don't know. Anybody but Vader, really.
Yeah.
Vader has go-home heat. Nobody wants to see him in a match at all.
He's on par with Marrow, for Christ's sakes. All right. Well, things kept on moving through that last segment and into our final match of the night. The Undertaker defeats Stone Cold Steve Austin by disqualification in 7 minutes and 21 seconds. The Undertaker decided to just lay into Bret Hart on the way down to the ring when they passed each other. That was kind of surprising, honestly, and very interesting to see. That was a great opening for Austin. Austin jumped the Undertaker from behind. They fought at the outside for quite a bit until they got in the ring and the bell called the official start. One of the first things that Undertaker does is the rope walk, which Austin does not scout. I feel like I'm going to be seeing that every time he does it now and noting whether or not he gets reversed. The crowd was behind this. There was a good rest in peace chant going on early on, and I couldn't blame the crowd one bit. Austin and The Undertaker worked really well together. I was just sucked into watching this. This was another one of those matches that you just kind of settle into, That is until Jerry the King Lawler got up to yell at Austin to work the Undertaker's broken ribs, and I got just terrified that Jerry Lawler was going to insert himself somehow into Steve Austin's life or the Undertaker's unlife or whatever. It's almost like I've been conditioned to be afraid of any kind of Jerry Lawler that isn't behind the commentary table.
I wonder if that's what they wanted us to think there, or if there was like a miscommunication, because that whole thing was kind of useless, right?
Yeah, it didn't go anywhere.
There was no interaction between him and Austin, so I wonder that.
Right after that, we got some random footage from backstage involving Bret Hart and fucking Vader, with Paul Bearer thrown in there for good measure, I guess. I guess Paul Bearer has more to do with Vader now than he did before.
Well, they tell us that he's his new manager, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When did they say that?
Oh, I can't remember. I just remember hearing it.
Ugh, maybe I blocked it out.
I mean, they walked out together last week and then...
Yeah, but it is directly said by someone during this episode.
Yeah, I must have repressed it. I know he carried him out of the ring last week, but...
Yeah, well, he's his manager now.
I was hoping it was just convenience, because this makes no sense at all, Paul Bearer and Vader.
Well, it does. It's a last-ditch effort at trying to get something out of Vader, which they're desperately trying to do. I mean, they've had him work with every top guy.
Maybe because, as Joe, you established last week, Paul Bearer is a better ring worker than Vader at this point.
Yeah,
so
and
maybe
all of us would rather see Paul Bearer be the fourth guy in that match than Vader.
By the time we got back to the match in the ring, it was to catch a 2 count that Austin had got on The Undertaker. The split screen showed us a taste of the action that we missed while we had to look at Vader just now. And after a little more action, here comes Vader, followed by Paul Bearer, attacking The Undertaker. That draws the DQ finish. Bret Hart comes down, and we end up with Bret Hart, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Undertaker, and fucking Vader in the ring duking it out. And that schmoz kept going for a good couple minutes with no real logical conclusion as we faded to black. Joe, this started out great for me and then shit the bed at about the first time we saw Vader in the mix. What did you have on it?
Yeah, the match was pretty good. The most disappointing part of the match was the fact that Vince McMahon was back on commentary.
Yes.
That was disappointing.
Yeah.
And that whole thing with Jerry Lawler was strange. I don't know what that was all about. But obviously this was, when you see Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Undertaker with 6 minutes left in the show, it's like, okay, well, there's going to be shenanigans.
Yep.
And that's basically what it was. Vader comes out and gets a choke slam and basically no-sells it. And then and then Bret comes out and things get good because Bret and Austin are in the corner beating on each other, and that is always great to see. I mean, even Vader and Undertaker, the stuff they were doing was fine, but again, I'm just sitting here wondering, why did they have to insert more people into it than Bret and Austin? I'm sure there's a reason for it, but I just don't know why.
I thought this match started off great. Undertaker on his way down the ramp, he immediately starts punching Bret Hart. Stone Cold joins in and they're fighting each other on the ramp and outside the ring. The Undertaker wraps Stone Cold's head off that same set of stairs that Bret did a few minutes ago. I thought that was great. And that's before they do finally bring it back into the ring. But I couldn't help but feel like this match couldn't feel like a Attitude Era match anymore. You have Stone Cold versus Undertaker. You have all the shenanigans outside the ring happening. Just Attitude Era shit written all over it. And these guys work great together, as you would expect out of two all-time greats. Everything they do looks good. The main shitty part, Joe, you just said it, was Vince McMahon worked his way back to the commentary table. Before that, we were getting some classic JR and King, and Vince brought this match down just a little bit. Speaking of things being brought down, Vader comes down and gives another lead-ass fucking choke slam for the Undertaker. It doesn't look good, but thankfully Hitman comes out and him and Stone Cold go at it, and the camera focuses on them mainly. It seems like the camera guy knew to not focus on Vader and Undertaker because Vader was going to do everything he could to make the Undertaker look underwhelming. We fade to black. Pretty strong match, just kind of shit the bed at the end with Vader coming out.
Yeah, and it seems like that's something we're probably going to have to deal with for about a month, maybe. Maybe after that he'll start to die back a little bit, but as I said, it's faded to black, so let's take it on over to highlights and lowlights. Ryan, please, why don't you go first?
Highlight is kind of difficult to pick just one single thing. I mean, the interviews, the promos, the matches, they were all pretty strong. 99% of it is the highlight here. I mean, most of this Raw was great. Lowlight is that 1%, and it's fucking Vader yet again. He snuck himself here right at the end and ruined what would have been a perfect Raw. So Vader, again, the lowlight.
Well, for me, even though a lot of our focus has been placed on Vader and how terrible he is, him being a part of this show, I do think this was a very strong episode of Raw. I thought that this was probably one of the best pay-per-view fallout episodes of Raw that we have seen in a very long time, maybe ever, just because, we start out hot with Bret Hart on the mic, pissed off about the ending of the Rumble, and then Stone Cold Steve Austin comes out, and let's not forget what he did the night before. Mm-hmm. We're getting, I said before that Austin had the volume turned up a little too high to like 15. Well, now he's getting down to that 11 setting, I think. So things are going really, really good with Austin. But for my highlight, I will say Vince McMahon leaving the commentary table. And for my low light, Vince McMahon returning to the commentary table for the last match.
Yeah, this was a tough one for me too, and good call, Joe, on the next day after the pay-per-view. I think you're absolutely right. This is probably the best Fallout show that we've seen, probably in most of the podcast, I would say. Whatever kind of energy they had from the night before, they just kept it going through these stories. So yeah, you're spot on with that. But I had a hard time picking highlights. I ended up going with the promos just across the entire night from Bret Hart and Stone Cold Steve Austin. Great shit. Loved hearing it. Was just enthralled by all of it. My low light, the whole 4-way no DQ situation. What a bummer, man. Just, what a bummer. What a bummer to hear. Gorilla Monsoon has terrible judgment. All right, and that's it. Joseph, do you have any contemporary wrestling news from on and around January 20th, 1997 for us?
Yes, Dave Meltzer in the Wrestling Observer has a few things to say about this particular episode of Raw. He noted that this was the best Raw in a long time. Mm-hmm. He said that the Owen Hart and Bulldog versus Doug Furnas and Philip LaFon match was 3.5 stars, so he enjoyed that match. He actually says it's much better than anything the previous night, meaning the Royal Rumble.
Damn.
Yeah.
He also says for the second straight night it was the Steve Austin show, and he's very close, if not already is, the premier all-around performer in the country right now. So Dave is pretty high on Steve Austin right now.
Makes sense.
He also noted that the January 27th and February 3rd Raw shows were taped, so unfortunately our next 2 Raws will not be live. But he also notes that the Raw on February 10th will not happen due to the dog show.
Oh, all right.
Fond memories with your mother, Bartlett?
Yeah.
That's right.
I believe that February 13th maybe was the special Thursday edition of Raw, so that one's coming up soon.
Thursday night, Thursday, Raw Thursday.
Dave Meltzer also had a little bit of things to say about the January 18th Shotgun Saturday Night Show. He said it was a huge improvement. He noted that Terry Funk was on the show. And Terry Funk said that Todd Pettengill's mother was a whore, and he called Vince McMahon. He called Vince McMahon a Yankee bastard, and then he wound up in a brawl with Stone Cold Steve Austin. So sounds pretty exciting. They also never did do that Goldust giving birth gimmick. I know you guys were excited for that, but they scratched it. Sorry.
Such a shame.
The tournament for the European title will begin on February 20th. And some, I guess, non-wrestling related news. Titan Sports is going to be handling the pay-per-view of the upcoming Sugar Ray Leonard versus Hector Camacho fight on March 1st. So we can expect a lot of hype for that on WWF TV over the next several weeks.
We expecting any cameos by the competitors?
I don't know. That's a good question. And I will leave us with some good news. And while I never wish injury or any negative things on anyone ever, but Mark Marrow is going to be out of action for several weeks. Dave Meltzer is noting that it's due to a personal situation that he is not clear of, but I believe this is... I want to say Mark Marrow tore up his knee at some point, so if that's the case here, he'll be out for a while, and then he will be powerbombed by his wife when he returns.
I think that we still have a little bit before that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think he's going to be out for a long time, and that's a good thing for viewers. Obviously not a good thing for Mark Mara, wishing him a speedy recovery.
But not too speedy.
Not too speedy, and that's probably going to change our Intercontinental Championship picture here coming up. So excited to see what's next for Hunter Hearst Helmsley, right?
Absolutely.
Enter Freddie Joe Floyd.
Freddie Joe Floyd.
Oh, boy.
I don't know if you guys remember when I did him as Jobber of the Week, he does have a quick run at the belt with Hunter.
Well, there you go.
I wonder what other parallels he has with Barry Horowitz. They both got real brief runs at belts, the IC belt.
Maybe he'll do a Poindexter gimmick, too.
Oh, gosh.
Come out with the Star of David on his ass.
Freddie Joe Poindexter.
Well, that is all for news this week.
Thank you, Joseph, illuminating as always, and we should end it there. That's it, folks. We're done with this one. I want to thank you again for joining us. If you like what we're doing here and want to connect with us, you can email us at WRASSLINRAW. Just add @gmail.com to the end of that to submit questions or comments. Check us out on social media and on every podcast subscription platform. While you're there, don't forget to follow and subscribe to get every episode of Wrasslin Raw coming to you every week. Give us a 5-star review and let your friends know how much cooler they would be if they became Raw heads like you and me. Next week on Wrasslin Raw, we're going to take a look at the Raw that aired on January 27th, 1997, with matches featuring Vader, Crush, and many more. So, for Joe and Ryan, I'm Jason, and this has been Wrasslin Raw.